everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of the Silent Pun Podcast. I'm your host, Henny Hemmons. Joining me this week is author Lee Bacon. Lee, how you doing?
Hello, hello. I'm doing great. How are you, Henny?
I'm awesome. Thanks for being here. And before we get cranking and talking about you and your stuff, I wanted to give a shout out to the platform where you and I met, Substack, kind of quasi social media, writing, a lot of creators. I was doing some research on you in the last couple of weeks, and one of the comments you made about your struggles with social media, as it related to Substack, is you enjoyed Substack because it was one of the only social media platforms that didn't make you feel bad about yourself. That's still the case?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think a lot of people, I've kind of dabbled in different platforms. I started with Facebook and have tried some other things over the years, and they all, yeah, as you said, they all kind of just left me feeling worse about myself. It's a bit like the sort of junk food thing where you're enjoying it while you're doing it. It's like filling some little weird dark hole inside of you, and then you get done and you like immediately feel worse about yourself. So I feel like that's Substack is the only sort of quasi social media platform that doesn't leave me feeling that way. I think because it's so writer focused.
Mm.
And there are of course video and podcasting elements to it as well, but it feels like such a platform that's so oriented around writing, and I guess that just allows more depth and nuance than what you get with some other social media apps.
Yeah, it seems much less addictive for me. You don't look up and all of a sudden 20 minutes has gone away. And like you said, you're like, oh God, that was a complete waste of time.
Yeah.
All right. So you have, I'm going to kind of talk about your career. Then we're going to take a brief little aside, and then we'll talk some more about some of your other projects coming up. But you've published 10 books, mostly middle grade. You
Yeah.
have a book in a movie development deal, 4 Audible originals. The last author we had on, one of the comments that we got after the podcast went up was from Larry, a listener, who had bought one of her books as a result and was really enjoying it. If no one's ever heard of you before, Lee, and they have a middle grade student at home, what is like the go-to number one first book you would recommend of theirs to check out?
I would say it a little bit depends on who the reader is, right? Like different kids are into different stuff, but my most popular book is called The Last Human. That's the one came out in 2019, and the basic premise is it's the future. The world is ruled by robots. The book is actually narrated by a robot, and humans have gone extinct in this world, or so they think. The robot narrator is very pleased with this situation, and then it encounters an actual like a human girl, and kind of has to overcome its prejudices against humans and help her on her journey along with a few of its robot pals. So that's my most popular one, and that's the one that you mentioned the movie. That's the one that's being they're working on developing that as a film. So that would be my recommendation probably for anyone out there who's got a kid who's got a kid in the home, or maybe a kid in their life that they're looking to find a book for. Maybe check out The Last Human.
And for those people who are not like in the literary world, when you say middle grade, that 3 to 5, 3 to 7th grade, what exactly is that?
Yeah, I usually say ages 7 to 13. But yeah, grades kind of three to third grade is sixth grade, something in that area. Definitely, I've met some younger, people with younger kids, or younger kids themselves who've enjoyed it, and then I've met some, you know, um, talked to older adults and older people who've enjoyed the books too. But that's kind of the target market, is like 7 to 13 year olds.
Cool. And I know we've got some kids in our neighborhood that we've turned on to that. So I'm excited about that. I'm going to now kind of fast forward through some of your life. I'm going to talk for like
Yeah.
30 seconds, and you
Okay.
tell me if my research is accurate, and
All
then
right.
we'll go from there. Um, Studied in college, industrial distribution. Like a lot of people in college, realized, I don't think I really like this, but continued to get a degree to keep writing. You had a love of writing in college and figured you would work a little bit and a quote unquote real job after college. and develop your writing skills. Kind of grew from there, got better, had lots of rejections. Somewhere in there, and that's like a 10-year period, right?
Yeah.
Somewhere in there, what you figure out is your voice changes from what it was to maybe middle grade, and writing for kids is your forte. How did that happen?
Yeah, it definitely happened by it was all by accident. The whole thing was an accident. But your timeline is accurate. Kind of I was writing, more aimed at adults and literary fiction, that kind of thing. And then I ended up moving to Germany. My wife is German, and this was years ago. I live in Germany now, but the first time I moved to Germany was back in 2007, 2008. And I was living there, and I was kind of trying to learn the language, get better at the language. And I started reading kids' books in German, just because they were kind of simpler. The language was simpler, the sentence structure was simpler. And these were the first kids' books I'd read since I was a kid myself. And something just kind of connected. I enjoyed them. I liked the emphasis on storytelling. I liked the emphasis on, you could kind of get a little bit more zany and humorous in kids' books than what you typically found with adult stuff. And so I started reading some kids' books in English, and something, just kind of, yeah, something just kind of, I found that connection that I hadn't really, it hadn't even occurred to me to write kids' books. I wasn't really a fan of them before that. Um, and and just kind of without even really thinking about it, sometimes you're reading a lot of a certain type of thing, and then you just kind of start writing that thing, and that's sort of what happened with me. I just started writing a kid's book, and when it was done, this was like, you know, as you said, this was like after 10 years of just writing and getting rejected and seeing no real progress. And I finished this kid's book called Joshua Dredd, and ended up sending out to a bunch of literary agents, found a literary agent, and from there we found a publisher, and that ended up becoming my first book, my debut novel. And it ended up becoming a 3-book series, and kind of was the first thing that really connected for me. And I think it just kind of worked well with my voice. As I said, there's kind of, I think you can kind of write more in like a silly, zany, humorous, adventurous mode when you're writing for kids. So that just sort of worked well for what my sensibilities are, and how I tend to work.
That is, there's some serendipity in there in
I
terms
know, I know.
of finding that. What precipitated the move to Germany in the first place?
Well, it was a girl. I met a girl, and we were doing the long distance thing for a while. And eventually we just kind of figured, like, she was in university still. So if one of us was going to move, it was going to have to be me, because she couldn't just, kind of like leave her program in the middle. So I ended up saying, like, well, there's nothing really tying me to New York, where I was living at the time. I had a job, but I wasn't like super invested in it or anything. And I'd only been there for like a year. So I said, fine, I'll just pack up my life, and carry everything I can in a couple of suitcases on a plane, and move to Munich. And yeah, that was like 2007, 2008. While I was there, we ended up getting married, and we lived there for a little while. And then in 2009, we moved to Brooklyn, and we lived in Brooklyn up until, and then like Brooklyn, and then New Jersey, up until 2024. And then just in 2024, we moved back to Germany, and now we're back in the suburb. Now we're not in Munich proper, but we're in the suburbs of Munich, and a lot's changed since then. In addition to the books, I also had we had a couple of kids, and so life, lot of life developments along the way.
You have 2 kids, right?
That's correct. Yep.
How old are they?
Two daughters, age 4 and 7.
Okay, so you're in the thick of it.
Yes.
How did that, I guess you at some point had a choice to raise them in America or in Germany. That had to be challenging for you guys to have that discussion and think about those things big picture.
Yeah, I mean, it is. I think in any relationship, even if it's just like two different towns in the same country, right? There's always this sort of these questions that come up of like, where fits best. And sometimes there are family considerations, sometimes there's friends and job and all sorts of different factors. For us, I think we always knew like long term, we wanted to the kids to we just felt that Germany was a especially kind of Munich is just but Germany as a whole was just kind of a better environment to raise kids. Not that I mean we loved a lot of things about the US. We were living in New Jersey, in the suburbs of New Jersey at the time, when we had kids. So I think we could have very easily stayed, but it was just kind of like we knew that we wanted them to have certain things that they could have in Germany that I think were a little harder to have in the US. Like I think there's a greater emphasis on independence in Germany. You can kind of your kid can kind of go out and play all day, or they can walk home from school, or they can be on their own, and there's less sort of freak out from society that you might get in the US. And, of course, there are other, there's like political craziness. There's some safety issues in certain areas and stuff like that, which were, not a huge thing for us. I mean, we lived in a very nice town and had a very nice neighborhood and had nice neighbors. So it was less that. It was kind of more like we wanted them to have this independence. And then we also wanted them to be bilingual. We wanted them to learn German. And I think if we'd stayed in the US, I don't think they would have ever learned German. Maybe they would have understood German, but I don't think they would have spoken it. And as it is now, um, they kind of got the basis of English because we lived there for the first few years of their lives. And then we moved to Germany and we still speak English in the home, even though my wife is German. She speaks English with them too. So like English is our house language and German is a like out in the world language. And they perfectly switch back and forth and they're already speaking the language a lot better than I am. So
I was just going to ask who speaks better, them or you?
yeah, I'm okay. I can get by, but their German is a lot better.
Well, one of the things I wanted to ask you about, you're a man, a father, a dad. One of the things we have kind of built in with us, either nature or nurture, is that providing for your family kind of pull. And, you had 10 years of struggle before you publish your first book. You can publish a book and things can go great or they can go dry quickly. How have you
Yep.
managed a career with a wife and children, balancing that kind of need and drive for stability and providing, but also in a really challenging career?
That's a great question. I mean, it is something that I didn't think about early on. I think when I was starting, I was just sort of like happy to, it was just me. I didn't have a, wife. I wasn't thinking about kids. It was just kind of like, what do I want to do? I can like live on, beans and rice. I didn't have an expensive lifestyle. I could afford to be poor. I didn't mind. And so that was not a consideration early on. I think that's probably the case for a lot of people. You're just like, what am I passionate about? And let me just kind of pursue that, which is, I think, great. I think that is probably better than like age 20 and already thinking like, okay, I'd better like think about long-term financial stability and maybe lose out on some of and maybe pass certain opportunities that just seem like they're more rooted in what you're passionate about or what you're interested in. So for me, it was just all kind of there was no practicality to it. It was just like, hey, what do I feel like doing? And this is the only thing that I really care about like deeply. Um, so I've been very fortunate, like in my first book came out in 2012. And I've been publishing pretty steadily since then, as you mentioned, like 10 novels, four Audible originals. A lot of the books have come out in a bunch of different languages. So that's been nice. It's kind of like selling international rights and you're getting money there. And I've had we've sold like screen rights for three different books along the way. So it's kind of been a steady like it's inconsistent, the income, but it's steady. It's
Mm.
like you don't know, you might go like 6 months with no money and then suddenly you get like this huge chunk of money all at once, and so it's hard to plan around that. And but so far anyway, that's been been nice to have, and it's been nice to be able to support myself as a full-time writer. But it's definitely even with success, I think very few authors, even authors who've been published, who've had several books published, um, very few like have some guaranteed success in the future. Like just because you've had a bunch of books come out, just because you've had bestsellers doesn't mean that in 10 years anyone will still want to publish your books, unfortunately. And so that's kind of a reality that I have to face. I'm in a very fortunate position that my wife actually has a um, more of a kind of corporate job that she really enjoys and she likes. So it's not like, it's like we're both actually doing something that we really like and enjoy, but she has she gets the stable paycheck, she gets the benefits,
Nine
and
to five.
that's really, yeah, the 9 to 5. So that's really nice to have. And on the other hand, I have a more flexible like work balance. So when it comes to like picking up the kids at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I can just hop in the car and run over and pick them up. And it doesn't have to be that kind of like negotiation of like, okay, who's going to take off from work to do that. So we have a good situation. And I think that's, it would be, I think it would be hard if, even if we both were freelance and doing well, um, it would be hard, I think, just not knowing when the next paycheck is going to come in. So we're fortunate in that way.
Yeah, it's funny how life works out sometimes. My wife and I, we got married reasonably young and didn't think about a ton of those things, and as it turned out,
Mhm.
my calendar year was super heavy on one end and hers was super heavy on the other end, and
Mm.
just we never could have planned it, but it really, would have been much harder had we had both of our busy seasons at the same time, so that
Yeah.
yin and yang is definitely important. I wrote something last week about um, not just being a man, but being a human and growing up and getting responsibility dropped in your lap that maybe you hadn't fully prepared for. The analogy I made to somebody the other day is like the first time you walk out of the hospital with a baby, and it's like, what in, what in the heck am I supposed to do with this thing? You're really
Right.
with that. When you had your first daughter and you had kids, how much of fatherhood and parenthood was, okay, I'm modeling how I was raised, and how much was it just figuring shit out by the seat of your pants?
Uh, I think especially early on, because I had that exact feeling. Like you guys, you've got this like little baby in a car seat, right? That they like you walk out with, and you're just like looking around, like you guys are really gonna just let me walk out with this thing. um, so I definitely had my wife and I both had that feeling. I mean, I think we were, we'd done the reading and we'd kind of done everything we could to prepare, but it was all like theoretical. It was not practical. Um, so I think early on it was, I couldn't really base it on my parents, because like all the baby stuff was, I didn't have any memory of being myself being a baby. And I didn't have a lot of like context for other babies. I wasn't around a lot of babies or anything like that. So early on, it was, I think we were both just flying by the seat of our pants. And I remember being literally like being in the hospital and like the nurses would come in and I'd say, okay, slow down, show me again. How do you change a diaper? That kind of thing. um, but we picked it up pretty quickly. I mean, you kind of just do it by instinct, I think, when you've got a little baby in the house. And so early on it was kind of seat of the pants, instinct, the usual, not getting any sleep and just trying to figure things out. But pretty early on, I think we both started kind of borrowing things from our own upbringings, of course. And that came down to just kind of like, how we treat each other, like I think that's a big thing, like with being, like I think not just being a parent and how you treat your kid, but also how your kid sees you treat your spouse and your kid sees you, you know, doing things around the house. Like I remember I have specific memories of like seeing my dad like down on the floor uh doing laundry, right? Like my dad was like a great father and played with us and did all sorts of stuff, but he would also get on the floor and like fold laundry in the evening. And like that kind of stuff made an impression because I was seeing like, okay, it wasn't just mom doing all the work around the house. It was also dad. And um So, I think I'm very aware that like my kids are looking to me and seeing not just like me as I am when I'm playing with them or whatever, but also how I am when I'm, you know, talking with my wife or when I'm doing chores around the house or when I'm working. Sometimes they're around and they're seeing me on my laptop. And it's like, I think they see both of us as like, hopefully they see us as like models for like how you can manage a, work life balance and a marriage and a parenthood. And I mean, not that they're like actively observing any of these things, but they're hopefully it's being absorbed in some manner.
Baked in.
Yeah.
Um, we talked a little bit about your voice earlier and middle grade books, but your Substack newsletter, "Mistakes Were Made," is
Yeah.
hilarious. It's
Thank
free.
you.
Um, one of the things I heard you talking about previously about your Audible books is working with someone um, to read those, like to record them for you, but
Yeah.
you record your Substack newsletter weekly. Um,
Yes.
I think, first of all, it's hilarious again, but your voice is really good. How did you decide, all right, I need to have someone else do the books as opposed to me do the books?
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. It was never really a decision with the audiobooks. Like all of my books have been have come out as audio. There are audiobook versions of them as well. And then with the Audible originals, those tend to be a bit like much more produced. So it's like, um, especially with a couple of them, I actually wrote them as scripts. And then there's like sound effects and there's like a cast of 12 or 15 voice actors. And um, I would love to at some point, record an audio book or at least have some role in an audio production or something like that. I mean, I think often the publishers they just default to what they know works better or what they can rely on, which is like, someone who's narrated a million audiobooks before, they have all the equipment, they've got the studio. My as you might know if you've listened to my um the recordings of my newsletter, it's very, it's much more like I hope that
Casual.
it's kind of like casual in a charming way, but it's, I mess up words and I have to, kind of clear my throat and say things again. And I'm recording it the same way I'm recording this. It's not a professional microphone. It's just my earbuds are in. So it's like, it's a very, kind of just authentic, let's say. It's an authentic process, which I think works on a Substack. It's like a weekly thing. People don't have the highest standards, but people might, if they were tuning in, for like, if they were paying like, $16 for an audiobook, they might say, well, this feels a little haphazard.
Why is he coughing? Yeah.
Yeah, why did he mess up the sentence like 5 times in a row? So, um, but that said, if given the opportunity, I probably would, try to, get something more professional, recorded or something. But I do enjoy doing the audio for the newsletter. I think that's I don't know, I kind of enjoy listening to, sometimes
Yeah.
other people out there who record the audio for their newsletters. It's kind of fun to hear their voice.
Right.
It's nice to like be able to listen to it in a different mode because Substack offers the audio for like they also just do like the AI voice that you can listen to if you're just like driving or doing the dishes or whatever. Which is fine, if you just want to like absorb what the thing has to say. But it's not the same as an actual human reading the thing to you.
Right. And I've loved following you. I love reading about Germany and your family. Um,
Yeah.
there are tons of moms out there who write newsletters, who write books about their experiences being moms. Have you ever given thought to writing anything a little bit more seriously than your newsletter about fatherhood or any of that part of your life, like nonfiction-y type stuff?
It's funny you ask. So bringing it back also to the audio stuff, I'm kind of working on right now a podcast with a friend of mine who's also on Substack, another person I met on Substack named Greg Nix. He has a Substack called Chortled. It's very funny. Um, and we're both dads. He has one son and I have two kids. And so we're kind of working on trying to do a parenting podcast specifically aimed at not just for dads, but like from the perspective of two dads. We both work in kind of kids entertainment, so it's kind of like bringing in that sort of angle too, like two kids, kind of kids entertainers, if you want to put it that way, or kids content creators, if you want to say it that way. But also to we're also trying to entertain our own kids and keep them alive. Yeah, we're working on that, and I mean it's definitely that would be a bit of a departure for me, and we're hoping to launch that this summer. So we'll see if we can get that going because as you said, like it's a space that's really you have a lot more moms in that space than you do dads. And so I feel like uh there is sort of a I don't know, there's a bit of a lack, right? I mean, I think there are probably a lot of dads out there who would love to find that, like whether it's as a resource or just as a like a place to kind of like hear from fellow fathers about their experiences. And so maybe we'll be able to meet that find that audience a little bit.
Yeah, that would be awesome because I really think there is a need for it. There's moms wind up having to do in a lot of homes way more than dads. I think a lot of homes are skewed differently, maybe than your home or my home, or as it sounds like your dad's was, and um, a lot of guys I think are disinclined to participate in that stuff. So the more that
Yeah.
out there and available for guys, I think is a good thing. Um,
Yeah.
one of the things we do periodically at Silent Punt is a quick lightning round where I give you a quick question or word or whatever, and you just fire off at the top of your head um, what you think. You game for that?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, the first one comes directly from the history of your Substack and a topic that seems to pop up from time to time.
Yes.
Naked Germans.
You want my take on naked Germans?
Yeah, let's have it.
I am I find it funny. I mean, I on my Substack, I kind of play a certain version of myself, which is that I'm like scandalized, as like this prudish, puritanical American. The truth is, I actually find it very funny. I find it kind of humorous, especially this side of like usually they're kind of older, they're like 60, 65 and up. So this kind of old, frumpy, gray-haired guy with nothing on except like some sensible sandals. I find that very funny, kind of like wobbling down like a pebble beach, with, dong hanging out, sensible sandals on, totally, sort of free and easy, maybe with his frumpy wife there next to him. So yeah, I find it funny, even though I kind of pretend to be scandalized by it.
Right. Oh, I think it's hilarious. I wasn't gonna, you saying the word dong reminded me of
Yes.
a story, oddly enough. We were on vacation like 2 years ago with another family in Jamaica, I think, and the other couple, the first day we were there or the second, went for a jog together, the husband and wife, our friends, and they came back with a story to tell us. Apparently, our resort was adjacent to, oh god, I'm gonna forget the name now, but the resorts where everybody's naked,
Right.
hedonism.
Hedonism. Okay.
They ran right into it, and, they got to, like, the middle of the property before they realized, "Holy shit, everybody is naked," and the husband here on in a different country got so freaked out, he just hit the jets, turned around, and ran back to our resort, leaving his wife in the dust.
He just couldn't handle it. It was
He
like all
couldn't
too much
handle it.
nudity,
That
panic. Yeah.
puritanical talk.
Yes. That's funny.
Okay, what do you miss most about America?
I mean, I miss a lot of things. I'm gonna say New York. So we lived in a town called Maplewood, New Jersey. And so we were not in New York, but like it was kind of a commuter town into New York. And so I love, just hopping on the train and going in for the day or, occasionally going like, since then we've had, little vacations and stuff to New York. And yeah, there's just something about the city, I used to live in the city. I lived in Brooklyn and I lived in Manhattan as well. And I lived close there, close to there. So I really find myself missing just the energy of New York, the culture, just the familiarity of the nostalgic factor of it. It's kind of, yeah, it's just that it's that special place for me. So that's the thing I miss when I think about the U.S. I kind of find myself thinking about New York specifically.
Lots of the pictures I see, that you put online from where you are now seems like I mean, you mentioned it being kinda suburban, but it almost seems country-ish.
It is, yeah, it is.
Okay. Is there certainly there's not another New York on the planet, but is there a place you and your wife can get to reasonably quickly for city type of stuff?
There is, yeah. So where we are, it is kind of a suburban. I would say it's a village. It's a commuter village. Let's call it. There is a commuter rail line that connects into Munich. So like where we are, there are like chickens in the street. Sometimes there are cows down the street. There is a pasture that we go through every day to go to my daughter's kindergarten with like horses and sheep that we see along the way. So it's very there are a lot of rural elements, even though it's also, it's there are plenty of houses around. It's fairly well settled. It's not like we're on like farm pasture land, but we're like 7-minute walk away from a commuter rail station that takes us into Munich. And Munich is definitely not New York. I mean, anyone who's seen the two different cities knows that they're just very different places. Um, but if you want to go to like a nice restaurant or cool park or a good museum, Munich has all that stuff. So we can definitely do that, and we try to take advantage of the city when we can.
It's one of the cool things about living in Europe is hopping on a train and being somewhere vastly different pretty easily.
For sure. Yeah, yeah.
Last lightning round question. Best beer in Germany?
Mm. Uh,
Your opinion.
Augustiner.
Say that
In my
again.
opinion, Augustiner. Augustiner. That's the Munich brewery, like one of the Munich breweries. There are several. It's been around since like I think 1326 or something.
Oh,
Um, it's older than the US. It's older than the discovery of America. And it's very kind of it's like a lager. They call it Helles here, but it's a lager beer, and it's kind of yeah, it's great. I really like it.
awesome. Well, wrapping up a couple things. If you guys are listening to this wherever you are, subscribe to us at Silent Punt or follow us, whatever you're following on. Bacon's Substack is Mistakes Were Made. You can
That's
subscribe
right.
to that. Any of his 10 books, The Last Human, Joshua Dredd, can find him on Audible. And you got a podcast coming now too. Does that have a name yet? You and Greg's podcast?
We're thinking the name the dad bag. So it's like the grab bag, but the dad bag. So the idea is kind of like it's people can send in questions and we'll answer them. So that's the name we're going with right now. So hopefully this summer we'll launch it. We'll have it launched.
Sweet. Anything else you want to pub before you sign off?
No, I think you covered it. Yeah. No, just yeah, and subscribe to Henny. You probably, if you're listening to this, you probably subscribe to Henny's newsletter already. But I definitely enjoy reading your newsletter on a regular basis. So I'm glad to have the chance to chat with you and it's nice to read your words, but it's nice to speak with you as a human being too.
Yeah, I've done that several times, and you see it periodically, folks on Substack that meet in person for the first time. I'm looking forward to doing that at some point with someone somewhere. But
Yeah, come out to Germany.
oh man, we're we love to travel. Our daughter's going to be in college in a year and a half. Um,
Okay.
been to England and Spain and Ireland, so Germany is definitely
Yeah,
going to be happening.
it's close. It's close to all those things.
For sure. Well, Lee, again, thank you very much for joining me.
My pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
You got it.
99 Jahre Krieg ließen keinen Platz für Sieger. Kriegsminister gibt's nicht mehr und auch keine Düsenflieger. Heute zieh ich meine Runden, seh die Welt in Trümmern liegen, hab 'n Luftballon gefunden, denk an dich und lass ihn